My name is Kim and welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. I have lost 100 pounds. And in today's video, I'm gonna tell you a little bit about my weight loss journey. I'm currently on the WW Green Plan as I work to get back to my lifetime weight. But WW has been an integral part of this weight loss journey. All right, but there's a few things I want to get out of the way before I really dig deep into the story, and there's some digging deep. This is my story and how I perceive my story. There's going to be a lot of talk about my mom, and I really want to be respectful of her and what her life was like and what her relationships were with other people. I recognize that I had a very unique relationship with her, and that how I saw things might not be how everyone else saw things. I also want to say that if I use words like fat, I mean them in a body neutral way, and that was a way that I described myself or saw myself. I in no way want people to feel shame or frustration or any negative feelings about themselves when I use those words. Please be sure to subscribe, turn on your notifications, like, and comment. It would really help me as I begin to share my journey with you and help you along in your journey. I want to be able to not only inspire, but help people feel confident and ready to take on whatever goals they want to achieve. I always kind of knew I was different. Even as a little kid, I knew that I was not like my classmates. I think part of it was I went to a private Catholic school and I was there on financial aid. So I knew that I was in a different socioeconomic situation than many of those people. But by the time I got in 5th grade, I was beginning to recognize that my body didn't look like my classmates. While some people might be eating carrots or trying to stay in shape for softball or volleyball, I was eating McDonald's and fried chicken. So when I kind of look back at those childhood years, I'm able to separate it because I actually went to a few different schools. And so when it came to middle school, I started a new school. And while I still played sports there, I played volleyball, but we probably had the worst record in the district. There is a time where I just remember my size, what size I was in the situation. So my 8th grade class was going to a science museum, and everybody was so excited because this was an opportunity for us to be out of uniform. And I was looking for the cutest outfit, and I was struggling because even in 8th grade, I was on that edge between plus size and junior. So I had bought the biggest pair of shorts from the junior section of Kmart, and I spent the whole trip like pulling them down and adjusting them. I was just not comfortable in the shorts or my body. And it's important to remember how far plus size clothing has come and how more inclusive clothing companies have become since 1995. And I still think we have a million miles to go, but my options were super limited. And so being forced to dress differently than my friends was also a huge reminder of just how different I was. My body looked different. I felt rounder. I wasn't getting the attention from the boys, and I struggled to keep up in gym class. And even though I participated in recreational sports, I was always what I called on the B team. I was never good enough to be on the A team. Now, some of that might just be that I'm not very athletically gifted, but I think my size played a big part in that. But I was also very aware that my family looked different, and that came from my mom. My mom was always kind of a big girl. And so even as a young child, when I felt like she was small, she would have still been considered obese by modern day standards. And by the time I got into middle school, she would have been clinically obese, even maybe morbidly obese. But it never seemed like a problem because she could always do things that I wanted her to do. She could take me shopping, we could go to restaurants. But when it came to doing other things, like walking at a park or going bike riding, she always tried to hang behind. And so as I got older, she got bigger. Now, that's not to say that my mom didn't try, because I know she tried. There's the Christmas where my dad got her the Jane Fonda step aerobics, which that would kick my butt right now. Or the year where she became a member of Bally's, which must have been a thing in the 80s, maybe 90s, I don't know. And she really wanted to go, but she struggled keeping up a consistent routine. And so there was a part of me who was kind of embarrassed that my mom had to be in the handicap section of the high school graduation, because it felt like, for me, that was supposed to be for the grandparents. And there was my mom, heavy, struggling to walk. And then there was a part of me who was honestly surprised that she was there. And I can't remember how old I was, but I distinctly remember standing in front of my house. I was probably barefoot. My brother and I loved to play kickball in the circle, like the cul-de-sac, with no shoes on. It was the 80s. You just did things. And I remember being acutely aware of how my mom's size affected her health. And I knew at that point that unless she made changes that stuck, that she wasn't going to see me graduate high school or graduate college or see me get married. And in a way, I was really lucky that she got to see all of those things. But the journey for her to see those was not easy at all. In fact, we had many, many fights over the years about what I wanted for her versus what she was willing to do or what she thought was possible. And in the end, it wasn't enough. Can we cue some Animal House? Because we are going to college. College was a big deal for me because I felt like it was a way for me to reinvent myself. And this is a theme you might see a little bit later on. So I went to a state school about 3 hours away from my family with no intentions of going home except for the holidays. And after really struggling to find a graduation dress for high school, I knew that prioritizing my health was going to be important. And as luck would have it, the student rec center was literally across the street from my dorm. And so my first semester of freshman year, I lost weight while people were supposed to gain the freshman 15. I did intramural inner tube water polo. That is a mouthful, and I can tell you that I was not very good at it. I did the elliptical. I ran on the treadmill. The numbers, though, didn't mean a ton to me. I don't think I truly understood what I was doing. And I definitely didn't understand what I was doing when I went to step aerobics. One of the girls down the hall taught at the student rec center, and I was like, oh, sure, I'll go to your class. And then I probably died. So I was able to go home for Christmas just a little bit lighter. And so I remember it being a huge deal that I could buy a size 14 pants at Old Navy to wear to that Christmas. Now, those changes, I don't think really stuck because it wasn't something that I did for me. It was something I did for a result. And so throughout my college years, I started to put on the weight and put on the weight. And by the time I became a junior in college, I was about 235 pounds. And there's a few pictures of me at this time. And I was not happy with the way I looked, but I also was not in a place to make changes. I was editor of the student newspaper. I was working long hours and I was eating not the best way. I had people on my team bribing me with Mountain Dew. I didn't make time for myself to eat healthy, so I was often getting carry out from this, delicious pizza place, but still not very healthy, that would deliver to our college newspaper newsroom. And because I was so busy, I was not prioritizing exercise. In fact, I'm pretty sure I got more parking tickets than any person on the planet that year because I was driving literally less than a mile to the newspaper when I probably could have walked from my apartment. So at the end of my junior year, I was actually just in a really rough place. I didn't get the fancy internships I had wanted, and I was going back home with no real plans. I was hoping to get one of my restaurant jobs back. I was going to be living with my grandma, and I was going to be away from all the things that I loved. So once again, I decided to try to make some changes. And I will say I did what I will call the grandma diet. I ate cottage cheese and tomato slices. I'm pretty sure every lunch also included frozen corn. I mean, cooked, warmed up. I didn't eat frozen corn out of the bag. And in that summer, I was able to go back to school probably 30 to 40 pounds lighter. And so I worked to maintain that weight loss and was able to graduate college wearing about a size 18. And while I was starting to get a little bit healthier, my mom's health, I think, was really starting to take a turn for the worse. I was in middle school when my mom was first diagnosed with diabetes, and she was on insulin pretty much right away. And so she was insulin dependent and continuing to gain weight. And by the time I had gotten to college, there were a few health scares. She had gone into the hospital with some heart problems, but she also really struggled with mental illness. And I still now am trying to figure out how much of her weight was because of her mental illness, or did her weight affect her mental illness? But I feel safe saying that my mom probably wasn't very happy. Why she wasn't happy, I don't know. Part of me thinks maybe she was just kind of born that way. But I also think that she was limited in the things that she could do and couldn't do the things she truly loved, even though she was always trying to find outlets. So my mom was a tremendous baker and could decorate the most beautiful wedding cakes. She made candy, and one of my favorite traditions was making Christmas candy with her. She could crochet, she could knit, she could embroider, she could sew, she could do all of these things. My mom could do all these amazing things that I still struggle with, but she couldn't take care of herself, at least not the way I wanted. And it was a real source of contention in our relationship, sometimes going months without talking after a big blow up. But then there were times where she promised me that she was going to lose 100 pounds that year, and then she didn't. And so her weight continually crept up. But then again, so did mine. So my 100-pound weight loss story doesn't actually begin when I was 21. So after graduation, I moved off. I started a new job in a new city, and I was lonely. I did not like my job. I didn't like my boss. I had probably the creepiest neighbor on the planet. I had a long-distance boyfriend who had probably stopped loving me at that point. I worked nights at a newspaper. My hours were fine for me, but they were terrible for making friends. And there were people I kind of liked at the paper. That's not fair. I liked them. But they weren't people I hung out with. They weren't people I went to the bar with or dancing with or even really out to dinner with. And so in this 14, 15-month stretch, I put on probably close to 70 pounds. I ate out by myself. I went to the movies by myself. I did nearly everything to myself. At night, on my nights off, what did I do? I called my mom and I walked to get ice cream. And that was probably the most exercise I got. I had developed some very poor eating habits at this time. My typical meals were restaurant foods that were large portion, high in fat, high in calories, high in salt, all those things. One of my favorite meals was the steak and shake dinner, which was a double cheeseburger, fries, chili, and a milkshake. And no, I'm not going to pop those points up on the screen. But as the months went on, I just was unhappy. And the unhappier I got, the more I ate. And the more I ate, just the more I spiraled. And I wouldn't even say what I was doing was emotional eating. It was just coping because I didn't know where I was going. I thought I had this boyfriend and we were going to get married, but I didn't even think I wanted to marry him, to be honest. I thought I loved journalism and I spent my days getting made fun of. I thought I was this independent, strong woman, and I spent my nights walking to get ice cream, talking to my mom. So, summer of 2004, it's time for me to make a big change. And lo and behold, I get another reset, another chance. I have a new job in a new city, actually a new state, and I am no longer with the boyfriend who didn't really love me. And I don't know that I really loved him, but I was going to turn this into a new me. And so I wasn't sure where to start, but I knew I was going to start somewhere. If you don't know where to start, what better way than a new year? And so 2005, I made a New Year's resolution to lose the weight. So I joined the YWCA. I made changes to my eating and the pounds started to drop. I was actually becoming that new person I thought I wanted to be. This person I thought that would be just created because I was in a smaller body. So I ate salmon. Salmon's still delicious. I eat a lot of salmon. I did the elliptical and I don't know, it just kind of worked. Things started to click. I was creating a lifestyle. I had people at work who liked me. I got to hang out with them on the weekends. I was feeling more confident in myself because I looked a different way. I feel like so much changed in 2005. I changed the way I ate. I changed the way I exercised. I could finally run that mile that I didn't run in high school. And I was beginning to feel more confident in myself. And that changed the way I moved in my daily life, the way I interacted with people, the way I was able to shop for clothes. I finally could leave Lane Bryant and shop in straight sizes. Now, let me say that there's nothing wrong shopping with Lane Bryant, especially now. Their clothes are super cute. But for me, that was so important because I had spent so much of my life really struggling to find clothes that fit my body and made me feel good in my body. And I just wanted to feel like the person I thought I was supposed to be. And so I did all of the things and I lost 20 pounds, then 30 pounds, and then 40. And I was finally under 200 pounds. And so in the time between 2005 and August 2009, where I feel like the meat of the story begins, I lost 50 pounds and then I lost 20 and then I gained 20 and then I lost 20. And I had always been what I would call quote unquote lucky that I never really got above that 200 mark again, but I was really creeping up close. Now, an important part of my story is that in that time frame, I met my now husband. And he was a guy that I really never thought I would be with. He was thin and athletic and handsome. And I never felt like in those earlier days that I deserved that kind of guy. And even kind of when we started dating, I was still in a larger body and might not have been seen as traditionally attractive to many men. So I hate to say that being in a larger body affects how you date, but it affects how I felt about myself and then how I interacted with guys. And so even if a guy liked me, I might not have let him because I didn't feel good about myself. My life was on this forward trajectory. My mom was continuing to slide into a deeper depression and worse health. By the time I got married, my mom was basically at her heaviest and weighed 600 pounds. And we've seen the shows, My 600-Pound Life, Dr. Now, but she never had that intervention. She never had somebody to tell her those things or to help her. Because yeah, I might have bugged her, but I don't think I don't know. So at the wedding, we had to make accommodations for my mom. At this point, she was struggling to get around. We were getting married in this beautiful old Catholic church, which had a ridiculously long aisle. And my mom honestly didn't think she could walk the entire aisle. Especially without her oxygen tank. And she didn't want to have the oxygen tank with her as she walked down the aisle. And I know that I was probably pretty immature and selfish, because I know that I was concerned with how everything was going to look and in the pictures and how it made me feel. And I'm sure that was super hard on her, because she couldn't be there for me the way she probably wanted to be. And she wasn't there for me the way I wanted. And it led to some not so great months. You know, weddings can bring people together. They can also bring people apart. Actually, weddings can bring people together, but they can also break people apart. And the 3 months following my wedding were probably some of the most stressful in my entire life with my relationship with my mom. All right, so this is the part where the story really takes a turn, so we can all just take a deep breath, because this is where my life changed. And I didn't expect my life to change at 27 years old. But I believe it was a Monday, and I was getting ready to head into work when my grandma called me. Grandma only called if it was an emergency. And that day, it was an emergency. My mom's heart had stopped. She had been transported from her home to the emergency room via ambulance. And she had been resuscitated, but was currently in a medically induced coma. I didn't know what to think, because we had had scares before. She had been in the hospital before. She was diabetic. And I hung up the phone. I was like, okay, I'm going to go to work. And then I was like, why would I go to work? And so I made a 3-hour drive from where I live now in Indiana to my family's home in Ohio. And that started a 15-day process of saying goodbye to my mom. So without getting into the medical nitty-gritty, her body was basically drowning. She suffered from a condition called lymphedema. And if you have watched My 600-Pound Life, you are familiar with some of this, where the body is just so filled with water. And so you could see on one leg, just significantly bigger than the other, you could see it red and irritated and strained and sore. And her body had, I want to say, 40 liters of water on it. And no matter what they did, they just couldn't pull enough water. And that water had caused significant damage. And we withdrew care. And my mom died on March 21st, 2009. So one of the things that I struggled with, I mean, you struggle after any parent's death, is that I was mad. I blamed her, because I just thought, well, if she had just done one thing, maybe things would have turned out differently. I was a newlywed. I wanted to have kids eventually. I wanted my mom. There's so much for my mom I don't know. And I think I knew that then. And I was like, if she couldn't take care of herself for me, yeah. But then I realized something, and it took me a few months. I wasn't taking care of me either. Because while I had lost a significant amount of weight, about 50 pounds, that 200-pound mark, again, was creeping up. And just for some reference, I'm 5'3", and that's not very tall. So 200 pounds on my frame is a lot for me. And so I was, again, beginning to feel uncomfortable in my body. I was developing some bad habits, or habits that did not make me feel the best about myself. And so summer 2009 comes, and my husband and I want to get a dog. And lo and behold, we adopt. Adopt's not the right word. We inherit, basically, my mom's dog. And one of the things my grandma and I always said is, if my mom would just walk, things would be just so much better if she could walk. Even walk to the end of the block and back. Take one of those dogs and just walk. And so we adopt this dog, and I was like, I am going to walk that dog because she didn't. And so adopting the dog became part 2 of the story. We have part 1 with my mom and me being mad. Part 2 is the dog and me being a little just like, I'm going to one-up you. And so I'm going to walk the dog. And part 3 was my best friend joined WW. My friend had decided that she wanted to make some changes. And we have lived many miles apart since college. But, you know, it's funny when you see somebody else doing something for themselves, you suddenly think, if she can do it, I can do it. And even though I had never been overly competitive, I suddenly felt this like competitive urge, because if she was going to do it, I had to do it, and I had to do it just as good as her, or maybe a little bit better. I'm really sorry, Patty. I love you so much. I do. So fallish, I joined WW, and I was literally just squeaking under 200 pounds. I am now walking our Siberian Husky. His name is Denali, and trying to go through the grieving process of losing my mom. And over the course, let's see, probably a year, I lose the remaining 50 pounds. I actually got to a point where I was able to say I was half my weight. I got down to a weight that was probably a little unhealthy for me, from the mental side as well as the physical. I lost my butt. And a girl, well, I don't even know if I have a butt now. Who cares? Whatever. But WW, all of these things come together at one time. I can't say that WW is the only reason I lost weight. I can't say that my mom dying was the only reason I lost weight. And I can't say it's walking the dog is the only reason I lost weight. But I think everything came together to like this perfect storm of things where I was able to finally make the decision, like everything just clicked. And not to say it was easy. I had to undo a lot of things. I had to learn how to eat again. I had to learn basically to find joy in exercise. And that was not always easy, especially because to me, and walking is like the best exercise. I know it is, but I just found it to be kind of boring. And so eventually I did couch to 5K and started running. And so that's how I lost 100 pounds. But honestly, the more removed I get from it, the more I think the story is that I've kept it off. And I don't want to say that like, look at me, I kept it off. But the numbers show that people really struggle to maintain a significant weight loss. Our bodies rebel against us. Studies show that your gut biome like remembers being quote unquote fat. If I was sitting next to somebody right here, that would be kind of weird. But if we both weighed the same amount and were the same height and had the same body composition, but she had never struggled with obesity, she would be able to eat more calories per day to maintain her weight than me. I am always going to have to work harder than somebody who hasn't weighed more than me. It can be challenging to continue that momentum when you're not seeing the scale reward you. There is no reward for staying the same weight except that you don't have to buy new clothes. It's not exciting. It's not fun. You're just like, I guess this is it. And then you see somebody next to you at a restaurant eating a cheeseburger and you're like, I would like to eat the cheeseburger with the bun and the fries. I would like to go out and have the big thing of ice cream and just not think about it. I mean, I honestly think there's never going to be a time in my life where I'm not focused. And that's really hard because one, there are going to be people who think that's disordered, and I get it. And I would say to those people that you don't understand the mental trauma that comes from a journey like mine. Because not only did I grow up in a larger body, not only was I made fun of, not only did I have people driving past me and calling me Shamu. I remember being in that ice cream line when I was fresh out of college and people commenting behind me about the size of my butt. I remember all those things. And that just doesn't leave you mentally. You aren't always able to look in that mirror and go, okay. I'm fine. No one's going to look at me because my belly is this size. No one's going to look at me because my arms jiggle, and they do. But no one's going to see me the way I do. And it's just so hard to undo it. And so the farther you get removed from that success, it's hard to stick with it. And so one of the big things was the running. And so I credit that a lot. Maybe that's like the fourth supporting actor in my story, because I had to learn how to build a life that wasn't revolved around eating foods that were bad for me or hanging out with people who didn't support my healthy habits, because you're going to have people who don't know how to be your friend if you're not, partying or drinking or eating. They just don't. And so that's where running came in. And so again, that's where Denali comes in, because I told you I find walking to be boring. And maybe it was just I was bored with the route, but Denali and I would walk, and I would walk him a little more each week, because one of the big things of WW at the time was eat smarter, move more. And so every week I was like, I'm going to make my walk a little bit longer. So instead of 1.5 miles, it became 2 miles, and 2 became 2.5, and 2.5 became 3. And I think I kind of stopped there because at that point I was like, what is going to make walking with Denali more comfortable? Because I was looking toward winter, and winter walking for an hour seemed like the worst idea. But of course it could be at that time. I also thought leggings from the Target Junior section were appropriate workout gear. Again, can we just give like a little hand clap for how far workout gear has come in the past 10 years? Because there were not cute options for me when I was in a bigger body. And there weren't as many cute options for anybody then. That's just me. What do I know? I wasn't shopping at Lululemon or Athleta then. So I began Couch to 5K, and then on Thanksgiving Day, that 2010 and 2009, I don't know what year it is, whatever. I ran 4 miles on Thanksgiving Day, and I remember that being such a huge deal, because there was a race in my city that was 4 miles, and I had thought, I wonder if I could do it, but I was so scared of signing up for something and failing that I wouldn't do it. So my husband, Denali, and I ran 4 miles. And I literally thought I had won a marathon that day. I was so excited. I called my family. I was like, I ran 4 miles today. I ran 4 miles today. And maybe they thought I was like totally weird, which I mean, I am. But I know they were just a little bit excited, because I think I was able to make the changes maybe they had wanted for my mom. And that 4 miles allowed me to see that I am capable of more than I give myself credit for. And that was one of the things I learned in the WW meetings, because I went in going, well, I'm German. My whole family, I shouldn't say my whole family, that's not fair. I'm German. Many members of my family are overweight. I am just not meant to be in a smaller body. So even though your BMI scale says that I should weigh this, I really think that this is going to be a good goal for me. And the highest weight that I could be to hit lifetime was 140. And my leader at that time said, are you sure that's what you want? I was like, well, I can't be any smaller than that. And she's like, why? I was like, well, I'm German. I'm big boned. I don't see people in my family that look smaller like that. I'm also like the shortest one in my family. I really, unless you count my hair, I am a natural redhead. Like, I really didn't luck out in the gene pool. I have like the most gorgeous family, and I'm just like short. I'm this big. So she goes, don't sell yourself short. And by being in a smaller body or a larger body, that doesn't set my value, but I was not allowing myself to see beyond what expectations I had set for myself. She wanted me to be able to raise the bar and be my healthiest self. And yes, that was a particular number on the scale. And I think we just need to be honest that I know WW has changed a lot, but especially then, the number on the scale was indicative of your success in a way with the program. So that's my weight loss story. And I think what I want people to take away from my story is that you don't have to be the person that you think you were supposed to be, that you don't have to let your circumstances define you. I think I spent way too many years thinking about how my mom's weight affected me, or how my weight affected how other people perceived me. But I had to shake loose the perceptions I had made about myself and make the changes regardless if I thought I could be successful or not. Because I think there is a part of me who never thought I would achieve that success, that outward success on the scale. And by the numbers I did. I'm by no means perfect. I have days that are hard. I have weeks that are hard. Earlier in 2020, I had months that were hard. But I learned valuable skills and valuable information about myself that taught me that I could come back, that you don't have to just start a weight loss journey on one day and be done at 6 months later. You can constantly rebuild yourself. And every time you make a change, you learn something a little more, and you can start to give yourself a little more credit and a little more grace. And you can be the person you want to be for you. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe, turn on your notifications, like, and comment. It would all go a long way in supporting this very new channel. I look forward to sharing more with you. Adventures in eating and fitness and eating. And good night.